Hi guys, this is Tia and I'm back with another video. Let's do a dip gel manicure application today, okay? But before we jump into that tutorial, I want to show you guys what proper prep can look like 2 weeks later. Now, I did my nails. This shade is Studio Flat and it is available on the website. But I'm showing you guys right here when you do the proper prep, meaning you're either going to do a dry manicure or wet manicure, either one. You want to make sure that you're pushing back your cuticles, trimming back any extra skin, you're removing any protein, any dead skin, any hangnails, and that you actually cleanse your nail with alcohol and you use a good primer to dehydrate your nails. If you do the proper prep, your nails will definitely last. And if I wanted to, I could actually do a backfill. I could do a fill-in on my nails if I wanted to because my prep was so good. So just make sure you take the time to prep your nails before you jump into your dip application, okay? So I am so excited about the fact that I have just launched the gel edition to the Nail Dip Studio product line. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited. So, um, a- as I was sort of testing out different formulas and just different consistencies, I fell in love with a new technique for me. And I know a lot of people have been doing this with their dip nails, but for me, I fell in love with adding and replacing step 4 and 5 from the traditional kit with the gel base and gel top coat. Oh my God. Love it. If you suffer from cracking, excessive cracking, or shattering, like the shattered pieces or pattern that may happen on your nails, if you suffer from that, you need to go run and go get the base coat and the top coat. Game changer. Game changer. Look at my hand. That, the shine, the consistency, the protection, the extra strength that it gives my dip application, it's amazing. This is the liquid dip gel kit. It is available on the site. It's a 5 piece. You get your primer, which is interchangeable. You get your base coat. You get your bond, which again, from the traditional set, these 3 products are there. I just added the gel base and the gel top coat. Game changer. So now that we have done our walkthrough of the new additions, let's focus on today's color. She is beautiful. This is Miss Monroe. I think this is a perfect shade for fall, for winter. It is a true red. It is gorgeous. It is a shade that I think can really transition you from summer into fall and definitely into winter. It is a shade that, in my opinion, is like that red that you can wear all year round. It is a true red, and it looks amazing on so many skin tones. That's the other thing. Like this red on me, I'm in the dark deep category, so it looks like this. But if you were tan medium or fair skin, it's going to look really nice against your skin tone. This is a great shade. So I'm going to now jump into step number 1, which is the primer. And I am priming my nails. I like to prime my nails I like to put on about 2 layers of primer. I just want to make sure that I really, really, really prime my nails really good before I do my dip manicure and I apply any dip layers. I find that this primer really does help not only dehydrate the nails, but it actually gives me a nice grip with the product. It pulls my nail and the product together, and it really, really creates a nice barrier um, between the two. So I like that. Now I'm going to go ahead and grab my clear powder. We're going to start building that curve. Building the curve for me, I like to go just shy of midpoint, just shy of that, just shy of that. And wherever the back of your brush ends, that's where the start or the peak of where your apex will be. It will stop just shy of the back of the brush, meaning that layer that you just put down right there, that half of layer, will actually be the peak. That's what you're basically telling your nail. Okay, you want the height to be right here. Okay, so you're pushing all of this up from this point here, this center point there. Got it. If you have a tendency to push your and start your apex a little further towards your cuticle, and you're like, I don't understand why I have this sort of lump right here, it's because you put the product too close. That peak, you have to make sure that your peak, you're aligning your peak. Where do you want the tip to end? Like if you had to put the North Star over your finger, where would that beam start? And if it find that point, and that's where your brush should be. You get what I'm saying? Like you can't, if you push it too far back, you're going to have a hump. If you push it too far forward, you're going to look like popcorn kernels at the end. It's going to have a hump. You want to have it, if you're going to have that hump, you want it in the center, dead center. So I'm going to grab the shade Miss Monroe. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start waking up my powder. I need to do that. When you wake up your powder, basically you're doing is you're moving the pigment that's settled to the bottom back up, and you're redistributing the pigment throughout the powder, and it wakes it up. You're also, if there were any clumps in there that may have been sort of sticking together, you're breaking those clumps up. So now the powder is no longer clumpy and the pigment is no longer at the bottom. It's now redistributed. So that's just a little pro tip that I like to do when I'm doing my pigmented shades. So starting and always using a thin layer of the base coat, step number 2, I am going to find the starting point of my last layer, and I'm going to place my brush right on top of it and push it forward just a smidge. And I'm doing that because I'm staggering my layers. I want the very peak of my nail to basically coincide with the outermost perimeter of my first dip layer. So if you think of it like if your nails are like the pyramids, the point of the pyramid could be dead center to the North Star. You want to make sure that your peak, your apex, is dead center to that North Star. So that's why I like to go in the center. If you struggle with your apex or the curvature starting towards the cuticle area, more so in the back, that's because you started that layer too far, too close to the cuticle. If you find that your product is settling more towards the free edge, you're applying too much product. You're starting too low. You're not high enough. So in some cases you could be too high, and in other cases you could be too low. So if you go dead center, you will always sort of find that sweet spot. And it's also forgiving because it's kind of like in the center. So you can always, it's center is relative to free edge. So if you file your free edge down some, you can offset that. You can, it's forgiving. You get what I'm saying? So you can kind of like, oh, well, okay, it's shorter. If it's too far to the back, you can file your nails up a little bit just to like make it more symmetrical. But yeah, that's just something that I thought I would throw in there to let you know. Like, I like to stagger my layers because as you're creating that curve, you don't want to have to do all of that cleanup because you weren't intentional with your dip layers. Like, you're not thinking, okay, my activities that I do day to day, I've been doing 3 layers, that hasn't worked, so I'm gonna go up to maybe 4.5. Okay, cool. I tried 4.5. It was okay for 1 week. But then second week I started noticing that I had issues. Okay, well now I'm gonna try 5.5 layers. Okay, the 5.5 layers. Okay, so that means I need to have 5.5 layers on my hand without it looking bulky, chunky, and like distorted in some sense. You gotta stagger, and you gotta gradually stagger the layers because if you want more strength, for me, I need my strength to be in the center part. I need it in the center. So because I need that strength reinforcement in the center, I'm focusing there. But I also don't want that wide look because no one wants to look like they literally have quarters on their fingers. Like every finger looks like a quarter, a dime, a nickel. Like no one wants that. So by gradually adding the layers, you're gradually increasing the width without over widening your nail and making it look very chicklish. Now that I've applied that layer, I'm going to grab my brush and I'm going to start to dust off the powder. Now, I don't dust my nails after each dip layer. I like to let the powder, excuse me, I like to let the powder settle a minute. I want to make sure that it's saturating that base coat before I move on to the next step. Let's move into our next layer. Again, going slightly above, slightly in front of your last layer. You're going to go slightly down on the side walls and you're going to go slightly above where you stopped your last layer. And you're going to continue that until you actually reach, but without touching, your cuticle area. And you're going to do that, dip your finger into the powder. And as you dip your finger into the powder, you want to leave your finger in that powder for about 6 seconds or so. And the reason that you want to do that is because you really want that powder to grab a hold of the base coat. You want that base coat to actually attract enough powder and enough pigment so that you have a nice strong layer. And if you find that you have applied too much product and you have a little flooding, grab a wooden stick or the back of your cuticle pusher and use it to scrape off and clean up any mistakes, especially while it's still wet. It's still moldable, it's still movable. You can still place it where it needs to go if need be. So now is a good time to clean up mistakes. Always check your work for mistakes. And as you can see, because I was looking at the my pinky and I didn't see the flooding, I flipped my finger around just to catch to see because I didn't have a good angle on the other side because the camera was above me. So that's why I did that little flip back to look. Always tapping off, and notice I'm not dusting off that powder. Even after I allow that powder to sit on my finger for the 6 seconds while it was in its container, I still want whatever the residual powder is that's on top of my nail, I still want them to get to know each other too. They need a little bit more time. They need maybe a second date. This is a second date. Think of it like that. So let the powder sit on top of my nails while they have their second date. Okay? Now that I've completed that layer, I'm going to actually take the back of my brush and tap and press that powder in. I like to do that, especially when I get to like layer maybe number 3 of the color, the pigmented color layer. I do that because I find that it just makes the color even more bolder when I do that. I'm not trying to scrape everything and dust everything off, but tap as much as I can into itself so it's very pigmented. So once I've done that, I'm now going to, again, taking my time using a thin layer, taking my time to go down the side walls. Again, not sticking my brush back into the container, but flipping it around because there's product on the opposite side of that stem that's draining down. I'm going to use what's on the brush to do my nails because I don't want a lot of product. And I'm going to dip my finger into the powder. I'm going to grab the powder. I'm going to tilt that at an angle. And again, if you have a difficult time putting your finger in at an angle, dip the container. Let the container do the work for you and you slide your finger in, keeping your finger very still. If you wiggle your finger while it's in the powder, you will create waves and ripples to your nails. And if you don't tap to smooth them out, each layer will get bigger and wider and bigger and wider. And in some cases, even when you go to file your nails, you'll have some color discoloring there, pigment discoloring, and pigment transfer because you'll have to overfile to get that wave out. And by doing so, the pigment becomes kind of weird. Now you're filing off certain aspects of the powder. So you want to make sure that you keep your finger still when you're placing it into the container, as still as possible, not moving it around a lot so that you're not creating additional work for yourself on the back end. Keep your finger in the powder for about 6 to 10 seconds. And then once you have pulled your nail out, tap it off, inspect your work. Right now, there's a little bit of flooding that I can see right there on the side on my ring finger, but I'm going to address that in the filing and shaping section. Now that we've applied our final layer of pigmented powder in the shade name Miss Monroe, I'm going to dust everything off, and I'm going to make sure that I am specifically dusting this powder onto the paper towel. I'm doing that because I'm about to move into the encapsulation phase, which is basically taking the clear powder and putting a clear layer on. But before I do that, I'm going to take my brush and tap it on the back of my towel to remove any loose pigment that may be in there. If you have pigment can transfer from your hand into your clear powder, and especially because I'm using a red, it can start to tint the clear to like a pink clear, not necessarily a true clear. So I want to make sure that I'm removing everything off of there. And I'm going to apply, still using my base coat, step number 2, a thin layer of base to my nails, and then putting that clear powder on top to really trap that pigment underneath. You don't want to jump and immediately move into the filing phase without putting a clear layer over top, because that clear layer is going to keep the majority of that pigment under there. It will still give you the ability to file, because again, we're not trying to really over file our nails at this point because we have been applying thin layers, so we don't have a lot of cleanup on the back. So by adding that clear layer, it traps that pigment underneath there, and now you don't have to worry about filing or buffing off your pigment. You will still get this beautiful bold red color without any faded spots or splotchiness in your nails when you add the clear. And if you notice that your powder still looks to be a little wet, stick your finger back in the powder a little bit and get a little bit more, like I just did there, because it looked a little wet to me. now that we've done our clear layer, we're going to dust everything off. Now that we dust everything off, we're going to add our bond. Step number 3. Step number 3 is important because this actually starts the curing process to actually make the dip layers hard, to harden the dip layers. And so I'm going to add a couple of layers of the bond. I like to do a lot of bond because I wear a lot of layers, and I want to make sure that that liquid is actually getting down at least 3 layers down so that I can start my filing process. I can't start filing my nails until my nails sound like this. If you don't hear that, if you hear more of this, that means that it's still wet. So you want to hear this before you proceed. But once you hear that crisp sound, you can now take your towel and fold it up like you just saw me do. And what I'm going to do is, instead of throwing this away, I'm just going to use the underside and use that to actually file and collect any dust from the file and the nail file and the nail buffer in this particular phase. And I'm going to be using the 100 side and the 180 side interchangeably as I file my nails down, because I'm trying to, in some areas I have some bulk, so I need to use that 100 side because it's a medium grit. And then on the other areas where it's not as bulky, I'll transition back to my 180 grit nail file so that I can have more of a fine, softer nail file so that I can get the desired shape without over filing and removing too much product from my nail. I'm going to use my thumb as an anchor to really hold my fingers as I sort of navigate and start to shape up everything. And in areas where I find that I have over flooded, I am going to pull that skin back, place that nail file slightly under that area of flooding, and I'm going to start to work from the underneath up so that I am removing the bulk but not disturbing the actual application, the actual dip layer application. If holding my finger becomes too much of a problem, I will place my finger on the surface for reinforcement and then basically file from above, if you will, keeping in line with the natural way that my nail is shaped. I will file in that direction and sort of start to taper it in just so that I'm getting that desired shape. I prefer shorties. I'm a short nail girl to the core, honey. Love me a good old short nail. I want just enough so if I need to pinch somebody, I can grip that little corner and twist with the little, I don't need all the, I want the little nubs, that little nub, get that little, and you get the, anywho, I like the shorty. So yeah, I shape my nails and I like the way that my nails are shaped. I work really hard on trying to perfect a nail shape that flatters my hand. So that's the other thing. Find a nail shape that flatters you. A nail shape, what may not look right on me, may look amazing on you. Like you may look really good with almond shaped nails. Or you may be someone who looks amazing with round shaped nails because of the shape of your hand, the way your hand looks. Like that's a better look for you. For me, I'm more of a square tapered girl or an almond chick. I can do an almond shape as well, but that's not my preference. My preference is always going to be a short nail, slightly tapered with a slightly rounded corner. That's my thing. That's my jam. Especially in the wintertime with like some fingerless gloves, a good little shearling, you got on a cute boot, you grab your tote, or you got a little fanny that you draped over top of your coat, you got your hat on. It's a vibe. It's a whole vibe. It's a vibe for me. I'm just going to go ahead and proceed with shaping my nails and making sure that I'm getting the desired shape that I want. And again, look at your work. Look at your work in angles. I will look at my hand dead on. I will look at my hand from the side. I'll look at it straight on. Sometimes I may even hold it up and look at it from the opposite angle just so that I can see how my nails are looking, because it may look amazing looking towards you. But if you flip your hand on the other side, what people will see conversing with you could be something completely different. And so you just want to make sure that they look related. Like the hand, your your left side of your nail should look like the right side of your nail. Like they should look related. They should definitely look like first cousins, if not siblings. First cousins. Like I need your nail to look like the sides to look like they're related. Now that we've completed the filing and the shaping, we're going to jump into buffing. I love buffing. I think buffing has sometimes it's underrated. I think people, they disqualify this step, but this is an important step, I find, and I think that it definitely takes your DIY at home dip manicures to the next level if you can get the shaping and the buffing piece down packed. That That's the game changer. Having a surface that is so smooth, having your side walls and your free edge so smooth, and no texture there, will then allow the product to glide over your nail. Once that product glides over your nail, it's settling in on like a smooth surface, so that shine is going to basically, shine from within, because that surface is so clean and so smooth without texture. It is a step that people overlook, but it is so necessary. So I spend a lot of time just buffing my nails, just trying to make sure that that surface is what I'm looking. It's a certain consistency, and when I can feel it once I have it. It's like, there it is. That's it. That's what it feels like. Um, I like doing this stuff, and having a good buffer is good too. It's important. You want to make sure that your buffer is going to be somewhere in the 200s. It should be like 220, 240, 260, 280. It should be in the 200s. Your buffer should not be 100. Your buffer should not be 90, a 90 grit. Your buffer should not be that high. It should be soft so that it can smooth and silk out the surface for you. Now I'm going to go wash my hands. Once you go and wash your hands, I use a little brush that I have to really wash and get the soap on, and to remove any product or powder that may be stuck underneath my nails or in like the little cracks and crevices. I go and I use a brush to take everything off. I'm going to dry my hands off with a paper towel, and then I like to take that same paper towel before I toss it, and I like to wipe off my desk surface just to make sure I don't have any dust. I don't have any particles, loose particles that could potentially, get triggered and settle on my gel overlay that I'm about to do. I just want to make sure that I clean that surface off. So I'm going to grab my lamp, and I'm going to grab my base coat, and I'm just going to apply a thin layer to all 5 fingers before I stick my hand in my lamp for 60 seconds to allow it to cure. So I'm going to use the base coat first, and then I am going to cure my nails for 60 seconds. I noticed a little mistake right there. I have a little bit of gel on the side. So I'm going to grab one of my little cotton Q-tips, and I'm just going to clean that up just a tad bit. I'm dipping it actually in a little bit of acetone just to make sure that I'm able to just remove any of that overflow of some of that gel off of my finger. And I'm doing that because I want to make sure when I put my nail under that lamp, I'm curing it. I'm not coming back out doing anything. There's no additional filing. There's no additional anything. So anytime that I may have something, an extra gel on the side, I'm going to wipe all of that off because, again, I don't want that flooded look. And we've all seen that flooded look when you have gel polish. It usually looks like a little, looks like a turtleneck. It looks like a turtleneck from the 80s. It's not quite standing up, but it's not quite all the way down. It's just there. So you don't want to flood your nails. You don't want to flood your nails because that's what it looks like. It just looks like why. Yeah, why. I think I'm good with this. I'm now going to cure my nails for 60 seconds. And now we're moving forward with the top coat. I am going to apply 2 layers of the top glaze, which is I would say it's a semi-flexible gel. It's not a flexible gel, and it's semi-flex, meaning it gives you just enough structure without it really be considering, it's not, I wouldn't consider it a hard gel, but it's definitely not a soft gel. It's like in between. It's like maybe a flexible medium where it's not too soft, but it's not too hard, but it gives you definitely some additional strength there. And I am going to place that on my nails and then cure my nails for 60 seconds and then apply one more layer. Now I've applied 2 layers of that top coat, that top glaze, and I forgot to mention it's no wipe. So that my top coat doesn't have that sticky film, that sticky layer. Once you're done, you're done. That shine, everything. Again, the base coat, 1 layer, top glaze, 2 coats, the new way that I'm doing my dip manicure. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And let me pop into some sunlight and show you what Miss Monroe looks like in the sun, because she is everything. Thank you again for watching my videos and all of the support. And until we meet again, keep dipping, guys. Bye.